Good afternoon. This is Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing. You're joining us for another installment of Social Media Pie, where I bring to you inspiring people to inform and educate you. And we are certainly in some interesting times here, aren't we? And I'm so pleased to be welcoming my friend and network connection with us today, Cathy Mott. And Cathy's going to be talking about emotional intelligence. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like what we are going through right now is going to test our leaders and is really going to help to reveal those folks that have a good understanding of the strength of emotional intelligence and how it can help each of our organizations to be really resilient through these changing times. And what we are in right now, this too shall pass. You know, we are in some interesting times. They are going to challenge us in different ways as individuals and as organizations, but we will make this through and we will be into different times soon, and we'll back to our normal times soon as well. So before I bring Cathy on screen, what I'm doing right now is just waiting for the live stream to come up on LinkedIn. And it looks like the stream is coming through. So I'm going to just remove our cover graphic here. And hi, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. And you might be watching us on LinkedIn Live or on Facebook Live. And, you know, this started as a series I started back in November when life was pretty normal, and now things are quickly changing. So I am bringing in different experts from my network and really starting to ramp up what we're doing here on LinkedIn so that we can hear from these experts and be inspired by them and be informed by them. And what I'm doing right now is I'm on StreamYard, so I'm just looking on my phone to see that those of you who've joined us. So if you're watching this live, I would love it if you could like this video, but also drop a comment below. Let me know where in the world you're watching this from. And if you have any specific questions for Cathy about emotional intelligence, I'd love it if you could leave those in the comments as well. I'm going to say hello to those of you who've said hello. So if you're on, I will shout out to your name right now. Hello to Samuel. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Hello to Christopher. Hi, Christopher. Looks like you're a fellow marketer. Nice to see a fellow marketer online. And hello to Usama as well. So we've got, I think, about 28 people watching the video. 3 of you have commented so far. I will make sure to come back to the comments a little bit later and give the rest of you a shout out as well. But if you're watching this and if you haven't left a comment yet, definitely drop a comment below, and we'll have the opportunity to chat and hear from each of you. So we are going to go ahead and bring Cathy online now here, and let's see if we can get her up on screen. Hey, Cathy, how are you doing today?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Good. I am so pleased to be speaking with you. I wish under different circumstances. I wish we were in different times, but
I know.
as I was saying in the beginning, this too shall pass, right? And
It will.
this will be a moment in history that defines many of us as individuals and as leaders, right, Cathy?
It will. It will definitely pass.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I've been thinking about as a leader and really focusing on emotional intelligence, I've really been thinking and asking myself, who do I want to be after this is all said and done?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what will I be most proud of
Mm-hmm.
after this is all said and done? And so, yes, we're going through very difficult times, but I also think that it's an opportunity to get to know myself better, to see who I am under stress, and to really tap into my emotions and validate them, and really think about how I can be resilient, not just when this is over, but every day. Being resilient, like really giving myself opportunity, time, and space to deal with my emotions, but also thinking about how can I be resilient so I can support my friends, my families, my clients along the way.
Don't you guys all feel like calmer just listening to Cathy right now? I just feel like, I feel like we're just in this emotional space right now. And, you know, at our house, my 2 children are home. You know, a lot of our spouses are starting to come. We're all kind of in this bunkered down state right now, but we're also flipping on the news and reading social media, and it can be very emotional. You know, there's highs and there's lows. I mean, the other day we did a spelling bee with my kids, and it was a lot of fun. And then 5 minutes later, we're all at each other's throats because we're in this house. But I love that. I love your attitude, and it's a very calming, reassuring approach to this. And I love how you're saying, you know, where do I want to be in the future, and how do I want to be remembered through the time that we're in right now. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, I reached out to you, was it earlier this week? Was it, or was it last week?
Last week. Yep,
Okay.
last week.
And we had talked about doing a segment, and I said, hey, we're in some interesting times. I feel like emotional intelligence is a topic that it's really relevant in any time or space, whether normal or not normal. But I think especially right now, because there's so many things that are happening so quickly, and we're into a new normal. So, so the topic for today, I'm going to pop it up on screen here for you guys, is emotional intelligence, how to be resilient during our changing times. So, Cathy, why don't you, if you could start, just give us a little bit of your background, how this became a topic that you really embrace, and then let's start having some conversation. And I'm going to remind our viewing audience as well, if you're watching us on Facebook, if you leave a comment on Facebook, I can pull your comments and questions up on screen. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, do take a moment to leave a comment, and I'll give you guys a shout out and just welcome you and say hello. We're up to 56 folks viewing right now, and I'll just give a couple more shout outs here, Cathy, before I turn the floor over to you here. David, good morning, or good afternoon, I guess it is already here. Good day to you as well. Jeremy says, an awesome topic. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. Lori Smith says hello. Hi, Lori. Christopher, another Michigander. So Christopher's joining us from Michigan. Denisha says hello. Susan is saying, hey, Brenda. Hey, Susan, how are you? And let's see, I think we said hello to Samuel before, and Lamont is joining us as well. So Cathy, I'll turn the floor over to you. Again, tell us a little bit about your background and why you've embraced this topic.
Okay, definitely. So I am an executive coach, consultant. I'm also an author, but a real passion around social and emotional intelligence. So I'm also a social and emotional intelligence coach. And my background, I spent 13 years in healthcare, which I absolutely loved, and was part of a huge culture change initiative where we would move patients from a patient service to creating a patient experience. Meaning we would move them from just the regular service to engaging them mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And so during that time in healthcare, that's when I became extremely passionate about emotional intelligence. So the organization I was working with, Trinity Health, I'll give a shout out to you guys, sent me to school for executive coaching. And from there, I went and furthered my education to become a social and emotional intelligence coach. So I leave the organization, start my own business. I'm traveling and coaching executives. And the number one leadership acumen that they really need help in is this social and emotional intelligence piece. And so I absolutely love it because I believe as a coach in that space, I actually create the space for them to come face to face with themselves, to meet themselves face to face and discover who they are. And then from there, they get to determine the person they want to be. They get to create that person they want to be. But it's only after you've really had an opportunity to come face to face with yourself. Yeah. And so in the emotional intelligence space, we really talk about and focus on those 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. And that first one is self-awareness. Okay, being aware of what's going on with you. Self-management, being able to manage yourself even after you have discovered the emotions that you're feeling. So then being able to manage yourself. And because you have a great relationship with yourself, you have checked in with yourself, when you see emotions in other people, then after that self-awareness, self-management, you recognize what's going on with others, and you can then discern what's going on with them. And then make decisions to manage that social setting. So those 4 quadrants: self-awareness, self-management, awareness of others, and then being able to manage the social setting that you're in. And so those are the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence, and 26 competencies within those 4 quadrants. So that self-awareness piece is important.
So I'm sorry, Cathy. So we had self-awareness, self-management, awareness of others, and what was the 4th?
Then being able to manage the social setting that you're in. Okay. And I can give you an example. So a lot of times if I'm maybe engaged in a conflict conversation. So I do some training around how to have productive conflict. And so let's say you're engaged in a conflict conversation and you notice the person you're having the conversation with is angry.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would blow right by that because they're uncomfortable addressing that emotion. But if you've had the opportunity to feel that emotion in yourself and manage it, you can address that emotion in someone else. So you can say, I see that you're angry.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can ask them, what is it that you're experiencing at this moment?
Mm.
And if they say, I'm angry, you can say, you know what, that wasn't my intention. Let me rephrase my opening intro to this conversation because I really want us to work through this together.
Right.
Most people will just gloss over that emotion and continue their conversation. So it's really important that we recognize the emotions in ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
that we're able to validate those emotions, because sometimes, in particular, that emotion of anger, we feel it at an intense level.
Right.
But once we validate it, you would be amazed, and you can validate this within yourself by saying, you know what, I'm angry. I
Right.
have every reason to be angry. Someone has crossed my boundaries. Once you validate that emotion, the intensity lessens.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're able to make a decision to respond to that anger instead of react. And
Right.
so that's the self-control, the self-management piece of it.
Okay. Okay. It's really important. And question we just had come in kind of related to this, self-control. And I just think the whole awareness topic as well. This is a question from John Pierce. And John says, do you feel behavior changes due to COVID-19 are temporary or permanent? So the reactions that we're having right now in our behavior that's changing. What are your thoughts on that, Cathy?
I'm hoping that they're temporary because I would hate to think that 6 months from now, 9 months from now, when I go to the grocery store, I still can't find food on the shelf. But what I have noticed, and I have been had a lot of virtual meetings with ICF Michigan and different coaching communities.
Mm-hmm.
And the value that I have found in creating a space for people to be able to talk about their emotions without someone automatically trying to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we're uncomfortable with people talking about their emotions because we feel like we have to fix it. The
Okay.
nice part about emotional intelligence is you recognize you don't have to fix. The greatest gift you can give someone is to hold the space for them to share their emotions. That's the greatest gift
Mm-hmm.
instead of always trying to fix it.
Right.
So if someone says, I'm afraid, you can validate that.
Mm-hmm.
You have every right to be.
Right.
What is it that's causing your fear? What in particular is causing your fear? So asking those what, how questions, giving them a place to explore their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, once they've had an opportunity to openly express and hear themselves share their emotions, they feel a lot better. And
Right.
so asking questions, well, what can you do to prepare for whatever it is you're afraid of?
Sure.
What can you do to prevent? What do you need to do to help others? Or
Mm-hmm.
what do you need to do to heal? So, what, how questions really take when we're in a place of fear or anger, we will find that the blood flow is very heavy to the back of our brain, the amygdala.
Right.
When we ask what, how questions, it shifts the focus to the frontal cortex and
Hmm.
it takes the brain on a place of exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And so people can shift and begin to think logically and strategically about how they want to move through different emotions. So I'm going to say what we're experiencing now is
Right.
temporary from my perspective.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's hope so. But I think in some aspects too, I think what I'm observing, and Cathy, maybe you're seeing the same thing as well, or different things, but I'm observing like times like these, times of stress like these are bringing out the best in leaders and managers. And it's also revealing where there may be some weaknesses or some opportunities for improvement in communication or leadership styles. And I you can't fault people because we're not there's no way we could have prepared for things like this and we're still going
No.
through it, right? But one thing I heard, or maybe it was read the other day, was that as leaders and managers, I think the most important thing is right now that we're being truthful and honest in our communications with our employees, right? We're trying
Yes.
to kind of let people know, and even a simple thing like checking in with every single team member by phone every single day, so there's a one-to-one contact that's occurring, can help sometimes to bring some of those emotions, because there's a lot of anxiety right now. Do I still have a job? Will I have a job tomorrow? What does next month look like? What about my mortgage? What about my spouse? I mean, everything is escalating, right? So it's the strangest times we're in right now.
Yeah. And it really goes back to authentic leadership
Mm-hmm.
and ties in nicely with emotional intelligence, because being true to yourself and true to who you are, like tapping in to see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you call and check on your direct reports, really give them the space to say how they're feeling. What are they experiencing at this time? And
Right.
letting them know that you're not in it alone.
Right.
Even if it's just for these few moments a day that we sit and chat, we're having face to face contact with other people who are feeling the same way that we're feeling.
Right. It's
We're
kind of
all a
like
little,
we're
yeah,
all kind of like this. I kind of feel like even you and I, Cathy, when we first got on the call, and for those of you watching, I always have my guests come on a few minutes before we test out our AV and all that good stuff. But we also, I feel like right now it's kind of the virtual hug. Like I'm like, Cathy, how are you? And she
I
said,
know.
how are you? And then we need to do that to each other. We need that human connection. Whereas before we might just picked up the phone and said, Cathy, where's that file? Can you get it over to me right now? It's like now as you're interacting with your fellow teammates, even if you're not in a leadership position, you still have that opportunity to kind of say, hey, how are you doing? How are things
Yeah,
going for you today? And it changes, right? Day to day,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And creating that space. And even in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, set an intention for today.
Hmm.
Every day, set an intention. And I notice, so I have a daily meditation practice where I check in with myself and I check into the three domains. That is, what am I thinking? And I give myself time to sit and say, what am I thinking? And then I ask myself, what am I physically feeling? So
Hmm.
I scan my body to see what I'm physically feeling. And then I check in and say, what am I emotionally feeling? And recognizing if I'm having pain in my body that's normally not there. I'm a firm believer that all emotions manifest themselves somewhere in the body. So pay attention to what you're feeling physically and emotionally, and set an intention for yourself to maybe care for yourself that day, to engage in some type of self-care, but also set intentions for the day of how you will conduct business. So I have an intention that I select 5 people and
Hmm.
I write those individuals down, and I make it a point to reach out to them virtually. Because if we're all stuck in our homes, we need that face to face contact.
Right.
So make intentions for yourself for each day. And then in the evening, when I go to bed, I have a gratitude book.
Oh,
I
that's
write
wonderful.
down 3 things that I'm thankful for every day. And so those are some things to help us to be resilient during this difficult time of change. So it gives us other things that we can focus on, that we can have control over within our homes, to
Hmm.
take so much focus off of the uncertainties of life.
Right.
These are things that we can do, that we have the ability to control, to
Right.
set intentions for
Yeah, the
ourselves.
control is a good part. And I love the gratitude journal. And I actually started one not too long ago. I haven't been as good about keeping it up every night, but I'm going to focus on the positive aspect of that, which is I've done it some nights. And I think part of it too, Cathy, is just sitting down and thinking and reflecting upon your day, even if it's been a stressful day. My kids are home and they're safe with me. I love the work that I do, and I see a path forward from all of this. I mean, just focusing on it. One day was I wrote down my teenage son cooked dinner for me that day, and he never cooks. So that was like a big thing. And it was like, I really did appreciate that, the little things. And I think it helps to kind of reshape your mind to focus on the positive aspects of things and not as much on the what went wrong today, what didn't I get done, or what went in the wrong direction today, right?
Right, definitely. And, I'm using this time to, when I say to myself, who do I want to be when this is over? A
Yes.
part of that, and I've been wanting to do this for months, is clean out my closet and
Yes.
use the tidy up method. Like when you put your hand on something and it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it. Well, I've never really had time to go through my closet and do that. So
Yeah.
I feel in control. I'm fully present in that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm also tapping into the emotions I feel around a particular garment. So
So
that when
what
this
was
is,
that? There was an author, wasn't that wrote the book? For those of you
yes, I
watching,
can't remember
I'm
her
going to
name,
ask
but
our
she has a
viewers.
TV
Yeah,
show. Yeah.
I'm
And
sure
it's called,
someone will remember it, but we'll wait for that to come up. But yeah, that whole concept of I know what you feel like. It's the same thing. I go through my dresser or even in my home office and looking around. There's things that are clutter, and I want to get storage and organization in here to put things away. But I read something once that says if you throw one thing away a day that doesn't give you joy, by the end of the year, you'll have 365 things out of your path.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And just being intentional about the environment you create for yourself. There are so many little things that we can do to be resilient during a time of change. And so oftentimes people will comment on this tree in my office. This tree is always on. I never turn it off. And
Yeah.
it
I love it.
represents, I love it. It represents the light that is always there within each and every one of us. We just have to make sure we turn it on. And
Mhm.
so, little things that I do to stay resilient during this difficult time.
Yeah. So waiting for the author, the name of the book title to come in. But in the meantime, we have a question that came in from Christopher, Cathy, that maybe you could help him and the rest of us with. So he's saying in the current situation, he's been finding it hard to identify with people emotionally. He feels like other people are just kind of numb right now. We're in this state of overload, perhaps. So thoughts on that. How do we work on being present, and how do we work through those emotions when we feel like we are kind of ourself frozen a bit?
So, be in that space because feeling numb in itself is an emotion.
Mhm.
And so, again, those what, how questions, what's numbing for you? So, being in that space, it's okay to be numb and
Mhm.
validating where you are. It's so okay.
Yeah.
And what I have noticed, I feel like at the beginning of this week, like people were on a high, they were extremely
Yeah.
positive. You saw a lot of activity on social media, and all of a sudden it kind of, and
Right.
people are feeling kind of numb. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's so okay to validate where you are. Give yourself time and space. And after you've worked through that emotion, then you get to choose, where do I want to move from? Where
Yeah.
do I want to move to next?
I wonder
What
if
do
a part of that numb feeling too is like it's our mental, our psyche kind of adapting to a new state. Like we need the time to process it. So it's kind of like everything else just needs to be blocked out so your body can kind of re-level set itself. And then you can get to an emotional place where you then can choose where you go next with that emotion.
Definitely, you're giving yourself the time and space to heal,
Hmm.
time and space to figure out what's the emotion I feel. So, anyone who knows me knows that I am such an advocate for journaling.
Yeah.
Because when you journal, you actually have to take whatever you're journaling about and you have to process it. And I love something that Brene Brown says, the quickest way to move information from our head to our heart is through our hands. So
Mm.
that whole journaling piece is huge. And I
Mhm.
always recommend it to my clients. And I have noticed my clients who journal compared to those who journal will move through things at a more rapid pace than
Mhm.
those who don't. So I'm a big proponent of journaling to
Mhm.
help move and navigate through different emotions. And what a keepsake it will be if you
Yeah.
journal. And
Right.
then after this is all said and done, to notice the emotional roller coaster that we rode during this time.
Yeah, and I read something recently for parents who are, we're now homeschooling. Everybody's homeschooling because the schools are all shut down. Have your kids journal too, and make that one of their schoolwork assignments. Like every day, have them write something, and it can be a sentence or two. But wow, what a fantastic thing for them to look back at someday, to tell their kids and their grandkids, what happened and what we are living through right now. And even the little things like, last week it was kind of fun. Oh, school's going to be canceled. We're going to be from home. And then, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday hit, and we're like, okay, this is a little bit socially isolating. And I started something on, so today's Friday. On Wednesday this week, my daughter, she's 8 and she's very active and very social. And we can't have play dates or anything with their friends right now. So I said, why don't we do a virtual story hour? And I have the Zoom platform. So I invited a handful of friends, and I think we had 3 the first day, and each of the kids brought a book, and we took turns on video reading the book, turning the page around to show each other. And this first day we had 3 people. Yesterday we had 5. I'm doing it again later on this afternoon. I'm sure we'll have a couple more on there as well. But
Right.
it's the same process of she could be journaling about this. We did a video story. I like we would have never done that if the world was back to normal, so to speak. But so in the meantime, we did get somebody, Cathy, popping in, Marie Kondo, the book.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what the title of the book is, but she was the woman who wrote the book about organizing and I think holding up things to give me joy. I haven't read it myself, but that might be something I pick
It's
up.
called Tidying Up.
Tidying Up. Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
that's the name of the book. I couldn't remember the author. Yeah,
Yeah. So Marie Kondo. So there we go.
there you go. So I will say, I have been journaling for 20 years,
Wow.
and I love being able to go back and look at my life. And some years I can't even read.
Yeah.
But I will share with you guys that I lost my mom 6 years ago. And when I go back and read that journal,
Hmm.
what we are experiencing now is nowhere near as devastating as that. And so the fact that I made it through that
Right.
gives me strength and courage to know that I'll make it through this. Because what I felt back then is nothing compared to what I'm experiencing now.
Right.
And so, Brenda, I did send you a little,
Yes. Graphic.
yes, it's
You want me to?
called the emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I
So
think it's appropriate to show now.
I'm going to put it up on screen. It's going to hide us as you're talking about this, but
Okay.
yeah, it'll be up on screen for our viewers to see here.
Okay. So I wanted to share this because it's called the emotional side of change. And when we as humans experience change, believe it or not, we go through some of the same emotions that we experience when we lose someone in death. And so when a change happens, we somehow, in some form or fashion, have suffered a loss. And so while we understand when people lose someone in death, we understand how important it is to give them time and space to grieve. But when we suffer different losses in life that maybe doesn't seem as large, we don't understand or give people the time they need to grieve. And so if you look at some of these emotions that people go through, they're very similar to grieving the loss of someone in death. There's shock, denial, anxiety, fear, anger, and frustration. So, riding that emotional curve. And then, as leaders or supporting others, there is a space where we can actually create that space for them to talk about how they feel, validate those emotions so that they can get to that place where soon they're riding on the upside of the emotional roller coaster, where they come to a place of acceptance and internalization and hope and enthusiasm. And that impatience comes about when they have so many ideas of how they can make things better or how they can buy into this change. They get so excited, it leads to hope and enthusiasm. So
Mhm.
that's an emotional roller coaster that all of us are probably experiencing and maybe can't articulate it or can't put it on paper. But we're riding this emotional roller coaster, and we need to give ourselves the time and space to work through it,
Mhm.
to ride it, give ourselves permission so that we can support others in riding this emotional roller coaster.
So while this is up on screen, Cathy, it makes me think about points in my life that, we've gone through, career changes and family members passing away and things like that. And I feel sometimes, it's easy. You feel like you've gone through it, but then you slip back, and sometimes I feel those negative emotions pulling me back. And I've always been a big proponent. I feel like energy moves in one direction. So I can either choose to allow that negativity to take my focus, or I can choose to point myself towards hope and enthusiasm and pushing myself forward.
Mhm.
So, I mean, is that common? Like this isn't necessarily linear, I guess is my point, right?
No, it's very common. And I'll take the death of my mom, 2 years in, 3 years in, 4 or 5 years in. You adjust, you learn how to live without that person, but it doesn't mean that there are days when I think of her, and some days I feel like it takes my breath away.
Yeah.
And so I validate that emotion. You have every reason to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I look just like my mom. I feel like she left me her
Oh,
face. And some
yeah.
days I look in the mirror and it's like, you left me your face.
Aw.
And other days I look in the mirror and I say, oh my goodness, I miss you so much.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
give myself permission to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And then once I validate, I can move on.
Yeah.
But pretending like those emotions aren't there
Mm-hmm.
and repressing those emotions, that's what causes people to react or explode or eventually go into a deep depression
Mm-hmm.
because they're holding on to all of those emotions.
Mm. Very, very interesting. And it's like it is very telling, this whole concept of emotional intelligence too, when people can kind of understand that their emotions are part of their leadership style and they need to embrace
Definitely.
them and not be afraid from them. Very important. And again, just going back to our topic here, which I'm going to pull up on screen for those of you joining a little bit late, is emotional intelligence, how to be resilient during our changing times. And I was chatting with someone a little bit earlier, and we were having a conversation about, we went from, gosh, what was it, 2 weeks ago, maybe? Life was normal. We started hearing the rumblings of things. I was at, a networking group a week ago on Thursday, and I kind of felt like this is going to be the last one for a while. Everything was starting to cancel at that point, and we were even thinking about at that point, did we cancel this or not? But then Friday, it was like everything started changing. So it's been really a week, and even now, workplaces are starting to, I think, for the most part, bring people back to their home offices to work. The kids are now in this homeschooling schedule, quote unquote. But we're going to continue to be in, I'm kind of calling it the new normal right now until we're back to the old normal. But the old normal may no longer exist. It's gonna, this is going to change our lives, right?
It is.
So let's talk about this. We're going through this process right now. What advice do you have for folks that are watching here today on how can they help themselves to be more resilient, and how can we help and support each other? I think this whole sense of community is a really important element right now.
It really is. So, one thing, as I mentioned before, when you wake up in the morning, set an intention for your day.
Mhm.
Like, what do you want to take control over? Like, we have an opportunity to make sure that we exercise, to
Mhm.
eat right. All of the things that we didn't have time for before, we now have time. If exercise wasn't something you do on a
Right.
regular basis, create a schedule and a routine and
Yeah.
then reward yourself when you stick to that schedule. So
Mhm.
creating little checks and balances when you set an intention and you reach that and you carry that out, reward yourself for that. So think
Mhm.
of some way to reward yourself. It could be and it doesn't necessarily have to be food, but it could be. So
Right.
I'll share with you guys, I've lived a keto lifestyle for 18 months now. Well,
Right.
this week I ate a whole bag of chips.
So what is keto? I've heard of it, but I'm not quite. It's not gluten free, is it, or is it a part of
No.
it? Okay. What is
It-
keto?
So it's very low carb. So it's
Okay.
70% fat,
Oh, okay.
20% protein,
Okay.
and then 5% carbs. And
Okay.
so I don't eat sugar and very little carbs. But potato chips, my whole life has been my most favorite thing. And so
Ah.
when I ate the whole bag of chips, I knew I needed comfort.
Right. Well, and sometimes we need to allow ourselves to comfort ourselves. We are,
Yes.
it's stressful right now, but I'm kind of curious for those of you, because I was a member of a gym, and the gyms are all closed right now. So I've started, like, every morning. We did it like 3 days in a row, and then we got a little bit off. But every morning, my daughter and I are going to do yoga, and we've done yoga, and it's not quite as strenuous as what I would do for myself in the gym because we're doing more easier poses. But then in the afternoon, every day, we have gone for a bike ride around the block. When the parks were still open, we went to the park and played for a little bit, but now we're just going in and out of all the subdivisions around us, and then we come home. But how are all of you coping with the exercise? Are you doing exercise in your homes? Are you watching online videos, things like that? Are you getting out in the backyard? Are you taking walks outside, walking with the dog, or taking bike rides? I'm kind of curious what everybody's doing, but I think that's a really important point. We need to make sure that the routines that we've kept before, and exercise for me was never about really, I'm not looking to become a bodybuilder or anything like that. It's just more, it was a stress outlet. And I've noticed the less I work out and then I'm focusing on that physical activity, the more stress I'm getting. So I'm like, I need to get back into that again. How about you, Cathy? Are you working out at home or going for
I am
walks, or what are
working
you
out.
doing?
Yep. I am
Okay.
working out at home. So I used to go to the gym 3 times a week. And the reason why I went to the gym was because so someone else could lead me. So
Right.
as a leadership coach, you're always leading others. And so I like to put myself in a space where I'm being led by others.
Okay.
So now that I'm exercising at home, it's another area where I have to push myself. So I do the treadmill every other day, and then I'll do Amazon Prime has some really great workout opportunities on Amazon Prime. They're really
Okay.
amazing. So check out Amazon Prime for their workout videos.
Okay.
And I do stretching at home as well. So really keeping that routine. And I said, if you're going to eat comfort food, Cathy, you got to exercise every day. So that's the
Yeah.
balance for me. And I always feel better after I exercise.
Yeah. You do. You really do. And I love your analogy. Like I love pie. So if you guys watch me online, you know that pie is my thing. I love pie. I don't eat it all the time, but that's my treat. And I kind of often joke. I'm like, the reason I work out is so I can eat pie without feeling guilty about it, right? So
Yeah.
So let's see. We got a couple audience comments. So Phyllis, thank you for joining us. Phyllis says she does stretches in the morning and takes a walk later in the afternoon or early evening. So you're kind of doing the same thing I'm doing, Phyllis. You're doing a little bit in the morning, a little bit, but we need to get out of the house because we're going to go stir crazy, right?
Yeah.
Sheris mentioned that they cut out carbs as well. And Erin mentions that her studio has posted online courses for free, and those have kept her on track. So it sounds like some of the in-person stuff is now going online. Heather Lintz is on. Hi, Heather. How are you? She says that she's keto, low carb too, 3 years in May, doing a lot of fasting, and a bag of chips here and there is perfectly okay. So she's on the chip bag there. Yeah. And Satya is joining us as well. So thank you so much, Satya, for joining us online as well. All right, Cathy, I think we're going to start to kind of wind our conversation down here today. And we'll let people get back to their work day, their workout, or, maybe you're like me. I've got a bookshelf behind me, you guys, and I've got a couple journals in here, empty notebooks that you get these little, I'm going to pull out a couple right now. You get these little giveaways. I was at an event at Mike Ilitch School of Business, these little notepads, and I've got like a ton of these around the house. This would make for a nice place for a journal, maybe something that I could journal about. Because I love your thought, Cathy, on the people that you work with that are journaling. I don't know what you said they're getting results faster, or
They
what was
do.
Okay.
They do. When they're trying to make a behavioral change and they consistently journal about it, they're able to make that change a lot faster than my clients that don't.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. I've noticed that for years. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to apply that. And I'm a big believer in intentions as well. And I loved when Cathy said earlier, I'm going to pull this up on screen again. Every morning, set an intention for yourself. I'm going to be thinking about that. And her thoughts on what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I physically and emotionally feeling as well? But again, that gratitude journal at night, and maybe even journaling throughout the day, so that we can be focused on, who do we want to be when this is all over. I really love your sentiment there, Cathy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. So any final thoughts for the group before we part ways?
Final thoughts is take good care of yourself. Really use this time to get to know who you are. And when our bucket is full, when we've taken care of ourselves, we're in a position to help others and support others. And don't we all need help and support from one another? So take good care of yourselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Cathy. And I put Cathy's URL. Let's see if I can point up on screen here. Right up on screen here. Cathy, are you open to new invitation requests from folks, or would you be better with new follower requests instead?
Definitely new invitations, new followers, and if I can help you or your organization be resilient during this time of change,
Yes.
please reach out.
And I'm going to put Cathy's website URL up on screen here as we kind of wrap the conversation. I want to thank all of you for joining today. If you happen to be watching this in playback, this is on Facebook and LinkedIn. And later on, I'll send a YouTube link out as well. So wherever you're watching, drop us a comment below. Let me know if you found this conversation helpful. If you have related resources you'd like to share, if you have any additional questions for Cathy, I'll make sure to get her the links so that she can follow up with you. And then I would encourage you, if you're not already doing so, make sure that you subscribe to my email list. And every time I add new speakers and presenters in this interview series, I'll make sure that you get a notification of this as well. This week was moving pretty quickly, so I don't think I got Cathy's note out there quite that quick, but I will have recaps to my past speakers in that series as well. So again, just really want to thank you, Cathy, for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, and have a great
Thank you for
afternoon.
having
And
me.
everybody have a great afternoon as well. Take care, everyone.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.